So first off, I'm going to kick things off talking about the basics of getting your files ready for your printer. And admittedly, this might not be as fun as writing your book or illustrating your book, but it's really important. And if you follow the basics, which we're going to start off by talking about the importance of book formatting, and then Taylor's going to talk about our 7-point checklist to get your files print ready. If you follow these tips, then you really can have a very positive and smooth printing experience. So it may not be as fun, but it can be really successful. And then Taylor's going to lead you through some common mistakes that we see, authors make, and how you can avoid those mistakes to save yourself some time, money, and tears. And then I'll wrap things up with a little bit about the time it takes to print a book based on our experience, offset printing, and I'll give you an idea of the cost of printing a hardcover book. So that's kind of how we're going to roll. First off, you're probably on this webinar because you're in one of these 4 stages of your self-publishing journey. Maybe you have an idea in your head, a vision, a story, and you're just starting to talk it out and write it out and draw it out and tell your story. Or maybe you've got your story written and now you're figuring out whether you can handle creating the print-ready file book formatting your book, or if you need to hand that off to a professional to help you. Or maybe you've already got your files printed, they're ready to go, and you're just in the process of choosing the right printer for your project. Or maybe you've already printed a book and it's selling off the shelves and you need to print another run of it, and you've noticed a few little tweaks that you want to make to improve the second print run, and are looking for advice there. So whatever stage you're in, I hope that we provide you with some good guidance and advice to make sure that your book turns out beautifully. And on that note, I'm going to start by talking about book formatting, because it really is critical to a spectacular bookstore quality book. Print formatting is really important, and we are a printer, but we are not a book formatter. So Carol has an eagle eye, and she will pick out, like, technically if there's a problem with your files, but we don't get into formatting, we don't get into copywriting or anything like that. So so I guess my message is that it's really important that your books are formatted properly when you send them to your printer. And you have 2 choices. You can go the do-it-yourself route, or you can have your book formatted for you. Regardless of which route you take, these are kind of the high-level tasks that are involved in getting your book formatted. You need to choose your trim size and work with the templates from your printer. You need to build out your pages using proper design tools. You need to lay out your text and artwork on the page, and then edit, make sure it flows, the grammar is right, there's no spelling mistakes. Then you need to create your final cover art, prepare your art and text files, and then export those files and in a PDF format for your printer. So if you're starting to gloss over and think, oh my gosh, that's a lot, I don't know how to do that, I've never done any of these things, then you might want to consider getting a professional involved. In fact, we almost always recommend, and I know Alexa does too, hiring a pro if you're not experienced in graphic design or print production. Print formatters can save you so much time and really make your whole printing experience and the end product just at a much easier for you. So print formatters have years of experience in typography. They've already got the design tools that you need. The amount of money you spend in hiring a formatter to help with formatting your book, you can probably make up in sales of your book, because it does improve the sellability of the quality of your book. So for all those reasons, we really recommend you hire a formatter if you're not kind of versed in this field. We have a page on our website called Hire Pro, and we've got a number of different resources that authors have, that we recommend. They're either recommended to us from clients, or we work with them directly ourselves. And so Melissa Williams Design and Martin Publishing Services, I'm highlighting them because Alexa recommended us to these 2 ladies, and they do a fantastic job. We've started working with them. And if you're in the market for a book formatter, you can go on their website and get their contact information. At this point, I'm going to hand things over to Taylor. Regardless of whether you choose to do your book formatting yourself or have someone do it, it's really important to understand the terminology and industry standards so that you can communicate with your printer and with your book formatter. So I'll hand things over to you, Taylor, to take people through some of your words of wisdom.
Okay. So book formatting and preparing your print-ready files. Artwork. InDesign is the industry standard for editing software for multi-page documents like books. It's where you bring all the creative elements from Illustrator and Photoshop together. Illustrator is a graphic design and illustration application for creating vector graphs like logos, illustrators, or icons. Photoshop is an app for image editing and photo retouching. InDesign brings the graphics from both of these apps together in one place where each page of your document can be easily laid out and customized as single pages or spreads. InDesign has a feature that easily collects final linked images and font files into a package folder ready for the printer. Even better, and what we actually prefer, is that instead of sending us the package folder for your pages, that the final PDF be exported from InDesign as press-ready PDF proof. This is easily done, and it embeds all the linked graphics and fonts into one compact file with crop marks and bleeds. Okay. Whether you decide to lay out and prepare your artwork files yourself or hire a designer to do so, the following are the 7 key things to note from a print perspective. Number 1, work to the quoted specifications of your project. Very important. Number 2, have a set of Pantone swatch books handy for reference when selecting your color scheme. Number 3, make sure you know what paper and finishes will be used. Number 4, make sure all your supporting graphics are at the correct resolution at actual size. Number 5, make sure the correct bleed and type safety is accounted for. Number 6, understand the principles of layout design. And number 7, proofread, also very important. So number 1, work to the quoted specifications of your project. This primarily includes page count, page size, colors, and features. So for your page count, that's the number of inside pages in your book, not including the covers or end sheets. Page size, it's the final trim size of the book's inside pages. A softcover book's cover will be the same finished trim size, but a hardcover book's cover will be about 1/4 of an inch wider and taller overall. Your printer should provide you with the template for your book cover, but you or your designer will have to set up the pages to whatever is specified on the quote. Now, colors. There are 3 color models: RGB, CMYK, and PMS. RGB stands for red, green, blue, and it's used for digital formats like designing a book on your screen. It has a very wide color range. It is vibrant and bright. CMYK is the standard used in any sort of printing on paper. It stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key or black. It's called process printing, and it combines the 4 colors to recreate almost any graphics. It's the most cost-effective way to print, but the color range is more limited than RGB. For this reason, there could be times when more specific colors are required. This would be for larger blocks of solid color or brand colors. In these cases, CMYK can either be replaced or added to with PMS printing. PMS stands for Pantone Matching System. It's a universally recognized and standardized system for color matching. Because they are single colors, especially mixed and advanced and not using a combination of 4 colors on a press, it's much easier to maintain color consistency throughout a print run and between different pages of the same print run. But it can get expensive. So the number of Pantones used in this project should be limited. Your features. Are you incorporating any extra features like foil stamping, spot UV, or deboss? If you haven't quoted your book yet, it's a good idea to do so early on and not once your design is already completed. It's also beneficial to find out from your printer what is and isn't doable, or to find out if there are any other possibilities you may not have considered. The type of features you want to include will require the file to be saved in a specific way. Number 2, have a set of Pantone swatch books handy for reference when selecting your color scheme. Ideally, the color bridge swatch books for coated and or uncoated paper allow you to select colors based on how they would look when printed as CMYK. The color bridge book shows you side by side how the closest 4-color match to specific Pantone colors would look on either coated or uncoated paper. Number 3, make sure you know what paper and finishes will be used. Colors will look brighter and more vivid on coated paper than on uncoated paper. This is because inks tend to sit more on top of coated papers. They are not absorbed the same way they are on uncoated paper. Coated paper is what is typically used for children's books, either gloss or matte. Uncoated papers are usually used for planners and journals because it's easier to write on them. It resists smudging much better than coated paper, but uncoated papers can be used for the pages of any project, and it's sometimes actually a preference over coated paper. Book covers usually either have a gloss or matte lamination as added protection after printing. Matte lamination tends to mute colors just a little bit. Number 4, make sure all your supporting graphics are at the correct resolution and actual size. 300 dpi is the minimum recommended resolution for the best output quality. Print resolution is the level of detail in a printed image. Higher resolution means higher detail and can be measured in dots per inch, DPI print production, or pixels per inch, PPI is for screens and monitors. The more dots of ink that are printed per inch or screen pixels per inch, the higher the resolution or quality of the image. As a general rule, you should always look for higher resolution images at the largest size available. These images can always be scaled down to your needs, but low resolution image can never be scaled up without losing any quality. So, when sourcing images for print, make sure they are a minimum of 300 dpi at the actual size it will be to be used in the book. Number 5, make sure the correct bleed and type safety is accounted for. Bleed must be applied to the background or any other graphics that you want to extend right to the edge of the page. Bleed is the extension of those graphics 1/8 of an inch beyond the trim edges. During trimming, there can be slight movement, usually up to 1/16 of an inch in any direction. This is unavoidable. If bleed was not included, unsightly white lines would appear in different positions throughout the print run on the edges of the pages. When bleed is included, no such white lines appear, and any slight movement would not even be noticeable on final prints. Type safety is the basic clearance within the trim edges of a page to ensure no critical text or graphics are cut off. 1/4 of an inch is usually enough, but sometimes more clearance is needed depending on the binding of your book. Smythe Sewn hardcover or Perfect Sewn softcover binding usually need a total of a 1/2 inch at the spine or binding of each page. Number 6, understand the principles of layout design. Make sure your layout, imagery, fonts, and color are pleasing to the eye and functional, but also communicate your specific message. This is essential to the success of your book. Key messages have to stand out to your audience in the most beautiful way. Text, images, lines, shapes, and white spaces, as well as principles like hierarchy, balance, and alignment, guide this process. Number 7, proofread. Once your book, layout, and design are done, but you're ready to submit your files to print, you need to review your content. It's a good idea to also have someone who hasn't seen it before take a look with a set of fresh eyes. You'd be surprised how many errors can be caught this way. Okay, what not to do. 4 tips to avoid common book formatting and printing mistakes. Common mistake number 1, using software other than Adobe. Is it Adobe or Adobe? These days, there are a lot of programs available to help you design your book. These are cost-effective and have a lot of options. Canva, for instance, is great for ideation, but might not always be great for preparing files for print. Many of our customers have used Canva and the other apps, and we rarely encounter any issues. But we are not familiar with these apps. So if any problems are discovered in your files by our team that need to be fixed, it may not be so easy to do so in the app and could possibly require a complete rebuild. This is rare, but it could happen. This doesn't mean we recommend you purchase the Adobe suite of software either. It's not so easy to self-train yourself. In other words, if you aren't familiar with the layout and preparing files for print, we strongly recommend working with someone who is. This doesn't mean you have to hire the most expensive designer, especially if you already know exactly what you want. But it does mean finding someone who does have all the skills to get your files looking the way you want them and the way we need them. Common mistake number 2, not adhering to the principles of layout design. It's so important to make sure your book is easy to read and appeals to your audience. Some common mistakes we see from do-it-yourselfers include using fonts that are not sized correctly or hard to read, text and illustrations too close together or on top of each other, not leaving enough room on an illustrated page for text and then placing it too close to the margins, not leaving enough space between lines, characters, or enough white space around illustrations. Common mistake number 3, expecting printed colors to look like they do on screen. What you see on screen will likely look different in print. If this is a new project for you, you should always print your design at some point during the design phase. The greatest gap in color will be from screen to print. So this is crucial that you can make any color tweaks early in the design phase. The last thing you want is to send your files to print, get the physical bound proof, and say, that color is completely wrong. Printers will only check that your files are print ready and match the quoted specifications. They will not be making any adjustments to color. If you didn't print out a proof while you were designing or refer to Pantone swatch books to choose your color scheme, then the proof you receive from the printer will be the first time you're seeing the colors in print, and it's not wrong. That's just the way it looks when printed with that printer. You should not discover that your colors are way off from your vision at this stage of the game. Common mistake number 4, expecting the finished copies to look exactly like the bound proof or like the book you've previously printed elsewhere. Although digital printing has come a very long way and the quality is comparable to offset printing, there are still color differences between the two. We print our physical bound proofs from a digital printer that uses toner instead of ink. So even though it utilizes CMYK printing and is calibrated to match our offset presses, there can still be slight variations in color. The physical proofs are intended to give you an idea of what the final look would look like. We do use it for matching during production, and we do our best to match as close as possible, but it's still impossible to guarantee an exact match. Printing between different print vendors can also result in different colors. This is because the different printers have different machinery, papers, and environments that can all affect the way the finished colors look. So, if you are reprinting your book with a new printer, you should send them a sample of the book for matching, not just for color, but materials and finishings as well. For more printing resources, please visit our website.
Thanks, Taylor. That was awesome. So probably now, the question that's on your minds is how much time does it take to have your book printed, and an idea of like how much it would cost. So I will run through some examples from our perspective. I can't speak for every printer, obviously, but we'll give you our timeline and cost comparison of us compared to POD to kind of help inform your decision. So before I get into the numbers, most of you probably know this already, but there's 2 different types of printing that Taylor touched on. There's POD digital, print on demand digital printing, and there's offset printing, which is us. Both are great. Just the route you go really depends on the type of book that you're planning to print, your goals for your book, as well as your budget. So we've done a whole workshop on the pros and cons of print on demand and offset printing, and the slides will be available in the link that I give you at the end of the presentation. But at a high level, the basic differences for our purposes right here are POD. You can print as your orders come in or print as needed. So the minimum order quantity when you go POD, which is like an Ingram Spark or Kindle Direct Press, the minimum order is 1. It's good for standard size books and standard features. You can't do a lot of custom work and there's not as much variety available to you. But if you have a basic paperback book, that might be just fine to go the POD route. You are going to pay a higher price per book because you're not printing as many quantities. And in fact, even as the number of quantities you print with POD, it doesn't really change the price of the book too much. But the trade-off is that you can print low numbers and it's a fast turnaround. With offset, which is us, with any kind of offset printer, it means bulk printing. So most printers, offset printers, the minimum order is about 300 copies. You can do all kinds of cool custom features with an offset printer. We do really neat, like if you have a children's book, you can add textures and pop-ups and cutouts. We do mirror pages. We've done snap-in bookmarks, snap-in whiteboard pages. Really, the sky's the limit in terms of kind of differentiating your book and adding unique features that you can do with offset that you really can't do with POD. And because you're ordering more at a time, you get the best price per book. It's like an economies of scale situation. So as the quantity of your number of books increases, the price comes down. The trade-off is it does take a little bit longer to get your book offset because there's a more complicated setup process to offset versus printing digitally. In terms of the cost, I grabbed these numbers from our March workshop. And we looked at looking at the cost of POD printing an 8x10 hardcover picture book with 24 pages, 80-pound paper, 120-point cover, and a 4-color ink. So we looked at Ingram Sparks. They have a calculator that we grabbed. We entered the specs into their calculator, then we did the same quote on our end. And as you can see from this chart, sort of at the 300 mark, POD is maybe a little bit less expensive, although I'm not sure that shipping and taxes are included in that price. I couldn't tell. And then as you print more, the price goes down significantly. You save $2 by going the offset route for 500 copies. And then the cost of printing 1,000 is only $3.95. So yeah, so the decision really is based on the goals for your book. Are you planning to print as a business to grow your business, or is it a passion project and you're just, you're printing for your own purposes and to share with family and friends, and it's less about making money. Because with offset printing, the more books you print, the less dollars is going to be per book, which means that's a higher profit margin for you. And one thing I forgot to mention the other slide was that with our quoting, we do an all-in quote. So we provide a quote per book based on bound proof, your taxes, customs, duties, shipping, all of that is included because we know it's really important for you to have an accurate idea of how much it's going to cost to print your book, because that drives your retail price, which drives your profit margins. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. In terms of our offset printing timeline, this kind of gives you an overview of the milestones in our printing process. The total elapsed time from the time you place your order to your books are delivered on your doorstep is about 8 to 12 weeks. The process starts with you placing your order with us. And once you've placed your order, you're going to send us your print files. And if you followed Taylor's checklist, then your files are ready to go in great form, and we can go right ahead and review your files and send you your physical digital proof. And then we recommend you take about 2 weeks to, proofread, share it with friends and families, really give it a good once over. And then once you're happy with that physical proof and you've made any kind of small changes you need to make, then we'll send those files to our production team and your book will be scheduled in queue for production. That takes about 2 weeks. And then delivery to door. So the quote, as I mentioned, includes shipping, and that's sea shipping. But if you do need your order faster, we can split order. We can send a partial part of your order by air and the rest by ship. And that whole delivery, if it is by ship, takes about 4 to 8 weeks. So the elapsed time is 8 to 12 weeks from approval of your quote to delivery to your doorstep. And I've just put together a few pictures of different projects we've done for authors to give you an idea of the variety of printing that is possible with an offset printer. So in the top right corner, that's a book, a really large, oversized book that we did for Angelia Donahue, The Blessing Ball, and it's gorgeous. It's got glitter and texture and really a really impactful book. The picture of the little monster here of Sherry Fink, we did our first glow-in-the-dark ink book for Sherry last year, and it's a really cool book. And above Sherry is a picture of Ryan. He wrote Inspiration when he was 15, 16 years old, and all of the proceeds from his book go to ocean conservation. Next to Ryan is a book we printed for Bill Constant. He's a wildlife conservationist, and yes, that is Jane Goodall next to him, who endorsed his book. It's a beautiful paperback book. And then below Bill is a picture of Rebecca, and I think we're just finishing up her third print run of one of her Chirp series board books. So if you go on our website, you can see more pictures of books and other projects that we've printed, as well as testimonials from clients. And as I mentioned, these are kind of our core service areas. We can print anything, but those are kind of our main business verticals that we print. Before we get to questions, I'll just give you a quick idea of the three things that I would like to highlight about us as an offset printer. If you're considering getting a quote from a printer, these are three reasons you might want to consider submitting a quote with us. One is you won't get any surprise invoices. I can't speak for other printers, but we do, like I mentioned, include everything in our quote. Your proof, your duties, custom taxes, shipping is all included, so there's no surprises. And not all printers do that, so be really careful when you're comparing quotes to look at the small print to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. The second thing is custom features. If you've got an idea for a really unique interactive book, or you want to create a book that is really differentiated from others on the market, we can pretty much print anything you can dream up. So I just want to put that out there. We also really try and reduce our carbon footprint. So we only print with eco-friendly soya ink. We use recycled and recyclable Esca board for our covers, which is made in Sweden and in the Netherlands. And it lays flat and stays flat. And it's just a really nice product, and it happens to be eco-friendly. And we can print with FSC paper if you choose. And then the other point is, if you're new to this whole printing process, which I imagine most of you are if you're on this webinar, you don't really know what you don't know. And it's really nice to have an expert that you can pick up the phone and talk to and have peace of mind knowing you're working with an organization that will handle all of the logistics and project management for you. So that you can spend your time marketing your book and promoting your book, and not time spent on the phone handling the logistics. So I think that's one of the feedback that we get from many clients is it's really nice to talk to a human and not a bot, and have someone that you trust to handle all of the details.